July 22nd, 1962, Mariner 1 launches in Cape Canaveral, exactly 294.5 seconds into the mission to Venus. The safety officer aborts and destroys the craft. I'll come back to this. So as Chad mentioned, I've been in the IT field for about 13 years and worked with teams of developers and in the development community, and I'll be honest, these guys and gals are weird. They're very weird. They have some eccentricities to them, some peculiarities that sort of distinguish them from other people in other fields of work. So in particular, they are fiercely opinionated about some of the most finite and seemingly trivial things. You can go online and search for debates and you'll see flame wars around what seem like the smallest of formatting related issues. So I'll get into some examples of this, but even if you get into IDEs, which are just the programming environments that people work in, this is like Bloods versus Crips in terms of it's unbelievable. One in particular is tabs versus spaces. If you search for tabs versus spaces on Google, you will get something like 2 million results. There's blog posts that have been going on for years with hundreds of replies and debates and pros and cons of tabs versus spaces. So when I say tabs versus spaces, what do I mean? I mean literally tabs versus spaces. You open a Word doc, you start a paragraph, you're writing a paper, you indent that first paragraph, right? You put a tab character, a single character. Alternatively, you can use spaces. You could use 4 or 5 or 6 different spaces and emulate exactly the same output that you get from a single tab character. Now in coding, we have structure and logic and indentation, a lot of white space. Now the debate, we have the option, we can use a tab or a space. Simple. And oddly enough, it doesn't matter whatsoever. It all compiles down into code that the white space is irrelevant. So it's a formatting issue. Not only that, it's non-visible. You don't see it, right? So there's the tab versus the space, and yet there's this raging debate that goes on and on. You should look into it. It's entertaining. So I think partially you have to understand a little bit about the context of applications and the way they run to get a better feel for perhaps the mentality behind this. Applications are really a pass or fail type operation. You can go, and I can go into a compiled code, remove a single byte, and the thing is worthless, destroyed, crippled. I can go into a config file of a running application, remove a single character, and put a one errant character, and completely disrupt the entire thing. It's very, very different from other fields. If we, common analogies in construction. If you go build a house, I doubt there's any one nail you could remove that would cause the entire thing to collapse. There's no one cell in the human body that you can remove that will kill you, that I'm aware of. Now there's systems, but we're not talking about systems. We're talking about single atomic units within this application. Same thing with the internet. You get a file, you get that file exactly the way it's supposed to be, bit for bit. There's no variance. There's no, hey, we got 95% of it, we got 99% of it, and I just limp along. It doesn't work that way. You get it exactly the way it needs to be. So, entering into this is kind of the mentality that you need. It's perfection. There's a lot at stake. So why formatting? What does formatting matter? Formatting has nothing to do with that. I just told you, it compiles all down and runs. Formatting has little to do with it, right? Well, there was a paper put out in 1973 called Perception in Chess. And this was covered in that paper was a study around positions of masters versus novices and their ability to interpret and understand a chessboard and memorize. So they took chess positions, had masters look at it and gave them 5 seconds. 5 seconds to view a chess position, and they were able to recreate it exactly the way it was. Novices couldn't do this, right? So there was a little bit of a trick though, in that if they randomly placed the pieces, the masters and the novices performed comparably. There was no difference. So what made the distinction? In the case where it was actual chess play, the masters think in terms of chunks, of groupings, of logical structures. They see patterns. They don't see just the individual pieces. This is the same way in coding. We see patterns. We see positions in logic. You look at the format and the layout of code, and without even looking at the characters, you know what's going on. You know what's happening. You derive data and information from the logical layout and structure. So it's important. Back to Mariner 1. Mariner 1 was aborted because of a single character issue. A coder incorrectly transcribed a formula and did not include an overline or one particular character within the equation, and the trajectory was off. So they had to cancel it. Arthur C. Clarke called it the most expensive hyphen in history. With that sort of backdrop, you get a better feel for programmers, the world we work in, and perhaps why we are so particular and so meticulous. The mentality that goes into it percolates up, not just from the logic layer, but into even the presentation layer, and is pervasive in terms of our approach to the world. So, the truth is, we want developers to be meticulous. We need developers to be meticulous. So please be forgiving of some of the oddities. Thank you.